kind of a fundamentally different regulated document, especially as we think about the Medicare space, is with regard to the explanation of benefits. And I'll say at the top here that we've had enough discussions with plans around doing things to drive engagement through EOBs that we know there is a spectrum of interpretation on how much those can include messaging like the ones I'm talking about today. So for plans that have a more conservative approach to what's included in those EOBs, that is 100% fine. And of course, completely, within the plan's jurisdiction to say what should go on things and what shouldn't. But we do have other plans that are starting to say the EOBs have such high potential to drive some of the engaging action that inclusions on things like the address sheet might start to become appropriate. So I think if any of us are looking at an EOB that we've recently received in the mail, assuming it's sort of that traditional look, I'm going to use a Tom Brady example here. So Tom Brady at the 2000 NFL Scouting Combine is probably about the most underwhelming person on the field. And we've sort of made the internal joke of likening this to our EOBs, where we don't have a traditional expectation of these being really high performers. But what we've started to see is that if we're including the right messaging that is pertinent to the content of that EOB, and I'll give you an example in just a minute here, this can totally become the superstar for your engagement. And the reasons are a fewfold. One is that these can be the relationship between the volume of EOBs going to a particular member and the cost of that member are pretty well correlated. So someone who has a chronic condition and is often going in to see a physician, lean on those benefits, they're going to have a higher volume of EOBs. And so we know the marketing opportunity is commensurate with the cost of care opportunity. And that gives us that chance to say we're really present with the person we need to be really present with. From there, we also have kind of the highest value opportunity. And if I think about the sort of how we architect that, one of the key pieces of data in the explanation of benefits is looking at the codes associated with that member's visit. And if we look at those codes and say, this is a code for an A1C test, and so we know that we've got a diabetic here, it can be a really appropriate place to say there is an available program sitting there within your portal or ready to be downloaded on your app. It just needs your sign in, and you now have this benefit working in your favor. So that timeliness, that recency, and that relevance to a more clinical and or a more costly condition can be exactly the territory where someone is most likely to engage in that behavior change. So the promotion of one of the programs that either might be a point solution that your plan has invested in, or maybe it's an internally homegrown program, it might even be something like a nurse navigator line. Any of these are opportunities to say, we know and are there for you with what has just happened in your medical journey. And not only do we want to dictate that information to you for your records in the form of the EOB content, but while you're on this journey, we also know that there are programs that we've invested in that might be available and useful to you. That type of an environment is where we're going to get the most bang for our buck. And kind of looping back to the beginning of this whole story, if we even got a few dozen or a couple hundred or 1,000 people involved in a chronic condition management program because we were the right message at the right time, that can have a benefit of hundreds of thousands of dollars back to the plan. And again, just for sort of optimizing the opportunity that's always been right in front of us.